Yep.
All right. Thanks, Katie. Give her a hand one more time. Give her one hand. When I was 21, I went gator hunting in Okeechobee, Florida.
Cool.
It's not that exciting. So I traveled with the carnival for about a year when I turned 21. And it took me a lot of places. So one of those places was Okeechobee, Florida. We had a day off. Just sitting around by my trailer getting high. The other carnies are out at the bar. So I hanging out, I light up a cigarette. We were with a small show, traveled with a lot of big shows. Guy comes walking up. He was South African. A lot of South Africans in the carnival industry. He's like, hey man, can I bum a cigarette? I said, yeah, fine. Give him a cigarette. He's like, you want a beer? I got a beer back in my trailer. So I'm not gonna pass up free beer. We go have a beer. He starts talking. He says, hey, you know, I was out in the woods earlier. There's a spot with a bunch of gators. We found where they nest. You should come check it out with me. No, not at all. He says, he's like, come on, man. No. So we have a couple more beers. He keeps pushing. And finally he's like, dude, why are you being such a wuss? Now, I'm a 21-year-old guy. Calling me a wuss is a trigger. I have to do it. So we go out in the woods. And, you know, I don't know if anybody's ever been to the woods in Florida, but it is a jungle. And we went deep in there. And I'm thinking, okay, well, with the South African guy, Africa has jungles. Like, Africa has cities too. So anyway, we get in there. We get deep in there, and we get to this clearing. Open patch of grass, complete with a toppled tree leaning at an angle. You all know the one. You've seen the camping pornos. So he's like, hey man, we should sit, you know, rest for a minute. I'm getting tired. We've been walking for like an hour and a half at this point. And I'm like, okay. So I sit down next to him. We're talking. He's small talking. He's like, hey man, you got a girlfriend? I'm like, no. He's like, not even back home? I'm like, no. He proceeds to put his arm around me.
Oh.
And says, we don't need girls anyway. So I turn to him and I'm like, hey man, look, I'm really sorry. I was clearly putting off vibes. I'm really sorry for that, but it's time to go. Like, this is not happening. He proceeds to take off and leave me in the woods. I traveled for 3 hours in possibly gator-infested territory, got back to the lot. My buddy asked me where I was. I tell him, I'm like, don't tell anybody. He says, you got my word, man. And for the rest of that year, I was known as Crocodile Dundee. Thanks, everybody. Give it up. Everybody give it up for Luke.
Right.